safety reminders before we do get started. Everyone must remain seated and keep those hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times. No whistling out, shouting out, or trying to touch any of the animals. This is their home and we are just visiting, so we do want to be respectful. Now, in terms of any little ones, they can sit on your lap or that seat next to you, but they cannot go from lap to seat and seat back to lap. We are about to enter into that first ecosystem out here on the reserve, known as the Little Ituri Forest. Given that it's forest, there are going to be a lot of trees. And with a lot of trees comes animals who have uniquely evolved and adapted to camouflage within those trees. So we do need to keep our eyes peeled and see what we can find. Coming up here to the right, I do see some okapi. Now, okapi have been nicknamed they've not been nicknamed, though they look a little bit like zebras. They're actually a relative of the giraffe. Now, the okapi have something known as a prehensile tongue. Now, prehensile is going to be just a fancy word that does mean super flexible. Now, the okapi will use that tongue to grab the leaves off of bushes. If you look very carefully at the shape of those okapi's head, you can definitely see that giraffe resemblance. In fact, the okapi are the only living relative of the giraffe. Now, I know I mentioned camouflage, and the main type of camouflage seen out in the forest is going to be stripes, in particular vertical white stripes. Now, I do see a black rhino right off here to the left. Now, black rhinos are solitary, which does mean they like to hang out by themselves. Now, a black rhino's horn is made out of something called keratin. Now, keratin is the exact same material you and I's fingernails are made out of. Now, if you look all the way along this back wall right here, I do see a black and white bird. Now, that's going to be a saddle-billed stork. Now, saddle-billed storks get their name because that yellow square on their bill. Now, saddle-billed storks do mate for life, and the way to tell them apart is their eye color. Males will have brown eyes, while females will have yellow eyes. Now, speaking of that camouflage I mentioned earlier, I see two wonderful examples right off here to the left. I see bongo, which are orange, and greater kudu, which are that light brown. Now, bongo have actually been nicknamed the ghost of the forest because of their ability to camouflage. And those greater kudu, those are female. And I know that because they do not have horns. Only male greater kudu have horns. Now, as we exit the forest, we're headed toward the next ecosystem known as the Safi River. So hopefully we'll get to see some aquatic or some semi-aquatic animals. Now, coming up here to the right, I do see some big white birds on these islands. Now, these big white birds are going to be pink-backed pelicans. Now, pink-backed pelicans get their name because during certain parts of the year, their wings will develop a pink color. Now, that does coincide with mating season, so there is no set mating season for the pink-backed pelican. Now, that is a Nile hippo right off there to the right. Now, hippos can swim, but they often choose to instead walk along the ground deep underneath the surface of the water. You see quite a few more of these Nile hippos right off here to the left. Now, a group of hippos is called a bloat.
Yeah, I know.
Now, these hippos will also sleep underwater as well, and they don't actually have to wake up to come up for air. Their bodies will do that naturally by bobbing their heads up and down. Now, that is helped by their eyes, ears, and nose all being on the very tippy tops of their heads. Now, coming up here to the left, I do see some Nile crocodiles. Now, Nile crocodiles are known as something called opportunistic eaters, which does mean they'll eat just about anything that crosses their path as long as they are hungry. Now, Nile crocodiles' jaws are strong enough to crush the bones of their prey. They also use those jaws to very gently roll around the eggs of their young in their mouth and help them hatch easier. We are now exiting that river ecosystem and headed up this hill toward the next one, known as the savanna. Now, the savanna is the largest ecosystem out here on the reserve, and savannas as a whole are going to be one of the largest ecosystems in the entire world. Coming up here to the right in just a moment is going to be a baobab tree. Now, baobabs do not have leaves for about 9 months out of the year. Now, when they do have leaves, it's going to be during monsoon season. Now, baobabs are able to sustain themselves during those months in which they do not have leaves by their thick trunks, which they use to store nutrients. are now entering into the savanna. Now the savanna is unique because its terrain is shaped entirely by the animals that live here. Now this occurs in three major ways. First, through grazers. Now grazers are animals who eat the grass off the ground. Second, through browsers. Now browsers are animals who eat the leaves off the trees. And third, through bulldozers. Now bulldozers are animals that will knock down trees to consume their leaves. Now already off here to the right, I do actually see a grazer. It is going to be an Ankole cattle. Now Ankole are also known as Watusi cattle. Now the name Watusi comes from the Watusi tribe who first domesticated them. Now though they are domesticated, the Ankole are not used for meat. They've instead been used as a wealth or a status symbol. And though their horns look quite heavy because of how large they are actually fairly light. And this is due to the fact they are mostly hollow with a honeycombed pattern inside. Now that honeycombed pattern helps the Ankole to regulate their body temperature. Now off here to the left in just a moment, I do see some more Ankole as well as some wildebeest. Now wildebeest are going to be a herd animal. Now being a herd animal does mean they like to travel in large groups. And a large group of wildebeest is going to be known as a confusion. Wildebeest are also a migratory animal, which does mean they'll travel great distances altogether. This does mean that thousands of them will travel about 1,000 miles each year during something called the Great Migration. Now during that Great Migration, the wildebeest kick up a lot of dust. Now many years ago, they kicked up so much dust during the Great Migration that the dust cloud was visible in satellite photos. Now those wildebeest, as well as those Ankole, are those grazers. They do eat the grass off the ground. Now some physical evidence seen out here in the savanna left behind by those grazers is going to be in those differences in grass height. Either super tall grass, super short grass, that kind of thing. Hopefully we'll continue to see some more animals, but I do see some more wildebeest right here. Now wildebeest are actually fantastic at follow the leader, and they do love to run. So when one wildebeest starts running, the rest are going to follow, and that's actually how stampedes can occur. Coming up here in just a moment to the left, I do see some Maasai giraffe. Now giraffe are those browsers. They do eat the leaves off the trees. They do that using their long prehensile tongues. Now giraffe's tongue can get up to 18 inches long. That not only aids them in eating the leaves off the trees, but it also makes their tongue long enough for them to lick their own eye. Now giraffes get up to 20 feet tall, hence the reason a group of giraffe is known as a tower. Now that other brown animal right there in the bushes is going to be a Patterson's eland. Now both those male and female eland have horns, but those males will be larger in size than the females. And to impress the females, the males will create something called a flower crown by wrapping greenery around their horns. Now those giraffes do only sleep about 30 minutes each day, and it's not like the giraffe take a 30-minute nap and then decide they're done sleeping. They'll actually take multiple short 2 to 5 minute naps that add up to account for that total 30 minutes. I just see a couple more baobab trees around here. Now baobab trees can live for thousands and thousands of years. Now up here to the left, I do actually see some greater flamingo. Now greater flamingo are the largest species of flamingo as well as the lightest in color. Now when a flamingo is hatched, they're not actually all hatched that pink color we know them for. They're hatched to gray. And it does take about 1.5 to 2 years for that pink color to develop. Now that pink color will develop through the consumption of something called beta carotene. Now beta carotene is found in the shrimp that these flamingo eat. left, I see a mud wallow. Now, mud wallows are shallow holes in the ground filled with mud, dirt, and water. Now, many animals will utilize them as a means of protecting their skin. Now, these animals will roll around in it, coating their skin. They'll then let it harden and dry. It'll create a nice protective barrier, almost like a natural sunscreen of sorts. Now, that black rhino we saw all the way back there in the forest, they will utilize mud wallows on occasion. That hole right there. My friends, I do believe I see a cheetah all the way very, very far up that hill. Looks like it's a little bit hidden though. It's kind of hard to see. If you look for areas of spots rather than what you think a cheetah might look like, that's how you can see them. Now, cheetahs can get up to 60 miles an hour in as little as 3 seconds, but they cannot maintain that speed for very long, only several hundred yards. And it is due to that lack of endurance that requires cheetahs to be incredibly strategic when it comes to hunting. Now, coming up here to the left in just a moment is going to be a rock formation known as a kopie. Now, kopies are utilized by both predator and prey animals as a means of surveying that savanna around them. Now, directly in front of us, I do see an ostrich. Now, ostrich can reach speeds up to 40 miles an hour. Now, when an ostrich is running at 40 miles an hour, that makes them the fastest two-legged animal on the planet. Now, this ostrich right here is a female, and I know that because she's got those gray feathers. Male ostrich will have black feathers. Now, all the way in the distance to the right, I see a small brown animal kind of tucked behind those bushes right there. It has a small set of horns, a little white patch on its forehead. Now, that's going to be a bontebok. Now, bontebok were poached to near extinction in the early 1900s, but through the efforts of one singular farmer, they did not go completely extinct. He penned in about 17 of them, and then their numbers grew. The saving of the bontebok species is a true conservation success story. Now, I do see a couple lions up here to the left. Now, lions are nocturnal, which does mean they are most active at night. They will sleep about 16 hours during the day. In a family group, those lions do have very distinct roles. The male lions guard the territory and the cubs, while those female lions will go out and hunt. Now, a lion's roar can be heard for up to 5 miles away. Now, down to our left are going to be some burrows. Now, burrows are shallow holes in the ground, and they tend to be utilized by many different kinds of animals as a means of both keeping cool, as well as having a place to defend themselves against predators. Now, to defend themselves, the animal will back into that burrow. So they like to defend themselves from one side instead of all sides. Now, there's a better look at that bontebok right off there in that clearing, my friends. Now, I do see a warthog all the way up this hill. Now, warthogs are one of those animals that will utilize those burrows. They'll either dig their own or just borrow a burrow another animal is left behind. You can kind of see it walking around back there. I do see some ostrich eggs right off here to the right. Now, ostrich lay their eggs in big old piles like that instead of an individual nest because it does make them easier to defend against predators. So an ostrich egg is actually strong enough to support the weight of a human being without cracking.
I know.
Coming up here to the left in just a moment is going to be the warden's post. Now, the warden does keep bees. You'll notice they'll be in that little yellow bee box kind of hanging in the center of the courtyard right here. My group of bees is known as a bike. Now, the reason bees are significant is because they play a large role in a particular conservation program. That particular conservation program is known as the Elephants and the Bees Project. Now, out there in the wild, elephants are often poached by farmers in a misguided attempt to prevent those elephants from trampling their land. Now, a safe way to prevent those and deter those elephants from getting on a farmer's lands is by setting up beehives periodically along the edge of these farmers' lands. Now, this works because elephants are actually afraid of bees. Now, this is known as the Elephants and the Bees Project. It is one of the many conservation programs that the Disney Conservation Fund contributes to. Now, There are other animals out there on the reserve who are being threatened by various practices, in particular those okapi, whose habitats are being threatened and destroyed by something called coltan mining. Now, coltan is a mineral used in the production of electronics, and it's used to extend battery life. Now, there is actually something we ourselves can do to help these animals, and it does involve recycling. In particular, recycling things such as old phones or glass boxes with coltan within them can be reused. Now, we do not need to stop there in terms of recycling. We can also recycle things like paper or cardboard to help animals like the bongo, whose habitats are being threatened and destroyed by deforestation. Now, I know I mentioned the bontebok and how it was that one farmer's actions that prevented them from going completely extinct. Well, I think that's a wonderful example about how every person's actions have an impact. Now, though, what that farmer did, pinning in those bonteboks, saving that species from extinction, it is a little bit more drastic than, say, recycling your old cereal box, but I do believe that the point still stands. Every person's actions do have an impact. Now, it does look like there's a little bit of a traffic jam right here at the unload area, so we're going to continue hanging on right here, just until one of these areas open up, and you'll be able to get off my truck and continue about your day.
I think we might be done. Screw this unloading back here. So there's this truck out.
Now, unfortunately, by the time you do get off my truck, all of those other animal-related experiences will be closed for the day. They did close at 4:45, and it is in 30 seconds, 4:45.
Let's stop here.
But there are plenty of other things that you can do during the remaining time before the park does close this evening. Some of those things are to take a trip to Dinoland USA, go to the Dino and visit the Dino Institute, and possibly take a trip back in time. Now, another option, you could take a trip to Asia, get on a train, and explore Mount Everest, possibly even see a Yeti. Now, another thing that is time sensitive would be seeing the last festival of the Lion King show. That last festival of the Lion King show is at 5 p.m. It's here in Africa at the Harambe Theater, and you could potentially see some local acrobats, dancers, and singers because of your favorite songs from Disney's The Lion King.
Now, as I said before, guys, Waharini, go well, find joy. Make sure you watch your hands, arms, feet, and legs. The doors will be opening. Y'all have a good day.
Now, it does look like we might be able to be moving forward in just a little bit. Get us one step closer for you getting off my truck and continuing about the rest of your day here.
How are y'all doing today?
You can also always go on over to the moon Pandora and experience the world of Avatar. It's actually quite beautiful at night. A lot of things are bioluminescent, which means they do glow in the dark. There you can take a river trip, see some of the wildlife of moon Pandora, see a Navi shaman. Or you could undergo the rite of passage of the Navi and fly on the back of a banshee at Avatar's Flight of Passage.
Doors are sliding open. Cooperating, everyone. Go well, go wild, but not too wild, okay? Have a great night, everyone.
Now, it does look like this unload area is just about to open up, and once it does, we're going to head on forward. Now, I do want to share one more Swahili word with you friends in just a moment. Now, that Swahili word is going to be kwaherini. Now, kwaherini means go well. And we don't like to say goodbye out here in Harambe. It is... Sorry, friends, my parking brake keeps re-engaging. We don't like to say goodbye out here in Harambe. It is far too sad and far too final. So we do like to say kwaherini instead. Now, kwaherini does mean go well. So kwaherini, my friends, go well, go wild, go have a great, go make a difference, and go have a great rest of your day wherever that may take you. If you had a wonderful safari today, my name's been Isabel. It's been a pleasure to be your safari guide. Now, my friends on the right, watch those hands, arms, feet, and legs. Those doors are now opening. If you do have any questions, feel free to come up to my window. It is quite literally always open. Go well.